Hello, this is Talking Smit. I'm here with the wonderful Mr. Jack Freeman, and let's see what he has to say. So, Jack, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Well, I'm British by sort of default because I was born there, but that's the only reason. All my immediate antecedents were immigrants. And my father was Polish and my mother was of indeterminate nationality. We're never quite sure what she was, although she didn't care about such things. And her parents were Canadians, and so everything about me is sort of weird in that sense, you know. What else would you like to know? I'm not even called Jack Freeman. My real name is Zbigniew Potyon. You know.
There you go.
But it's difficult for people to say that, so Jack seems more...
Makes it easier.
One day I chose my name. My mother read off a list of names because she was sick of the problem with my name. And I picked Jack. I can remember doing that.
All right, and you live in Prague now?
Yeah.
Because that's how I know you. So how did you end up here?
Well, after I got divorced, I'm sort of no responsibilities. So I went to a Beatle week in Liverpool because I went to see my best friend who this shirt belongs to. And this shirt is his uniform shirt from 1966, so it's older than you.
Yeah.
And this is the security tag, which shows how good the security was, because we stole the tag. Anyway, I'm getting digressing.
But that's fine.
Where was I? About how I came here.
Yeah.
Well, so I went to Beatle Week to see Cliff, and on the way back I stopped at a gas station, and there's this guy, and he had a sign, North. So I thought, well, he looks like a real hitchhiker, because I've done that, and I'm safe, he's not going to cut me throat or anything. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, I'm going to the northeast if you'd like to go there. And he said, I got a sleeping bag, I can go anywhere. So I said, okay, we'll go to the northeast. We became friends, and I visited the Czech Republic. He visited the UK. In the end, I was so attracted, I thought I'd come here. So that's why I'm here.
Oh. So how long have you been here?
10 years. There was a 2-year gap when I went to Cyprus for a couple of years and then came back. But my Czech is still at the infant stage. Well, I do study nearly every day on the computer. I get the exercises right, but I can't remember.
Speaking is something completely different, obviously. So I guess I met you at some open mic or some bar where you were playing. So when did you start playing?
Well,
and what?
Well, that was in Singapore. I realised that I was too avid a listener just to remain a listener. I knew who played on what records and all that jazz. So I decided to start learning. So I started learning a couple of chords, and then I got in a few bands in Singapore, like Chinese bands, because at that time the whole world was learning to play rock guitar. It was everywhere. You could go anywhere. Even if there was a language problem, you could say, can you do that? And they'd go, yeah, I can do that. And then bang, you're off, you know. So that was the wonder of it all. So I learned how to play, and then left the RAF, which was quite right, because I was totally unsuited for a military career, and they agreed with that, and they let me go. And then I started playing in bands in the UK, and the area I live in the UK at that time is the northeast, and there are thousands of what they call working men's clubs all over, which are sort of pubs with stages, and each club is attached to some industry or other. Well, there's no industry left now, thanks to Margaret Thatcher, but that's what the clubs are all still there, and we all spend our time in little vans driving around, setting up the gear, and playing loud music for the people. So that's the sort of background I came from. You know?
Yeah, if no one of you has seen him play ever, he's a rock star, for sure. I've seen him climb on tables doing crazy guitar solos. So,
Well, regarding virtuosity, I always don't care if it's difficult or hard. In fact, if it's easy, that's a bonus. I just want to make the noise, the nice noise. And there's famous guys agree with me. There's a guy I saw him being interviewed out of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Mm-hmm. And he picked up his guitar and he did a simple slur from an E flat to an E. And he went, doesn't that sound great? You know? And it was not difficult, you know, but it did sound great. Yes. So that's my attitude to it. I just want to make the nice noise, basically, you know.
So who's your biggest inspiration in guitar?
Oh, well, there's an awful lot of them, and they cross every bound. Sometimes it sounds as if guys who play are being pretentious, because they'll name people no one's ever heard of. Yeah. But it is a fact that, and a sort of strange rule of music, that the people who influence all the other musicians never get known by the general public. There's a guy called Richard Smith. I mean, a name like that, he sounds like a bank clerk or something, you know. And his playing makes Eric Clapton look like an amateur, you know. And he's just unbelievably good. And he's won awards and things like that, but the general public have never heard of him, you know. But when he plays, it's just divine. So I like people like Django Reinhardt. I don't mind Eric Clapton. But my first guitar influence was Chuck Berry.
Makes sense.
And what happened was, I heard a record when I used to work in the RAF. I heard a record called Sweet Little 16, you know, and I thought, that's a cool song, I will buy that. And I tried to buy it, but it was no longer available as a single. So it was on an album, and I thought, well, I'm rich, so I'll buy it. And I bought the album, and then I heard Johnny Be Good, you see. Wow, what's this? And that sort of inspired me to learn to play. And strangely, I've never actually sat and worked out Johnny Be Good. I've always just jammed it, you know, and played a standard progression that'll fit it, but never really picked out every little note that Chuck Berry plays. I'm sure he plays it different every time. But did you know that the real pioneer of rock and roll, which you could use the word king about, is a woman?
No, I don't.
Well, yes, she's a woman, and was called, I think she's dead now, she was called Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and she was playing like Chuck Berry before he was. If you go and Google her, because he did get some recognition, you can hear the licks are there, they're like Chuck Berry, you know. Yeah. So she was a black female who played a Gibson SG, very loud, and she'd started in the late 30s, I think. So, but she was playing like that. You listen to her playing, it's rock and roll, but just wasn't called that.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, there's another guy called Louis Jordan, and he was also like that. They didn't call it rock and roll, but his style was very influential. In fact, you notice that Elvis Presley's vocal backing group were called the Jordanaires. So I think that must be a reason why, you know. But being British, our first influences that we heard, we never heard of Muddy Waters or any of these guys, was firstly a guy called Bill Haley, and we heard the song Rock Around the Clock, you know. And it wasn't featured in a movie of the same name, though there was later a movie of that name. It was originally featured in a movie called Blackboard Jungle, which was a movie about juvenile delinquency. And so we all saw that and immediately wanted to be juvenile delinquents. And the music pounded. But then Elvis came and there was nobody else then. Early Elvis was absolutely, totally radical. And even now I can see he still looks, in those early clips, he still looks dangerous, I mean, having sex with a mic stand and God knows what else. Elvis was out of sight, and he was so good looking. And we were allowed to note that. You didn't question his sexuality if you thought Elvis was good looking,
Yeah, I never get it why, especially straight white men, are so afraid to admit that another guy is good looking. Come on, you got eyes in your head. You can see good looking.
I saw a whole movie made by another rock and roll icon who I, to this day, mourn deeply over, Buddy Holly. And he did a whole movie of Elvis backstage. He was support for Elvis. Oh, God. And there's a scene where there's a lot of people milling around, and then the camera pans around, and it's like, hits Elvis, and he's not on the stage. Instant charisma. It's just an amazing effect. Wow, who is this, He was dressed in denim, and he looked fantastic, So Elvis was definitely a big influence on all of us. But the British, they were initially just trying to copy the Americans, you see, because that was the thing. If you could, and they didn't sound like Americans at all. Our early rock star guy called, I don't know if you heard of him, called Tommy Steele.
No.
No, he was our first rock star, and he was a very personable, cheeky, cockney kind of guy, with a guitar, and he's now a general purpose entertainer, and that's what he's like. He does stage stuff and that. But in those days, he was the rock star, and they would be poor imitations of American songs. People like Marty Wilde, that was the next sort of big rock star, and he would always do covers of like Richie Valens records and things like that, or like Dion and the Bellmounts. He would do Teenager in Love, his version. And his version would be a success. And but then the first really authentic British rock and roll record was by Cliff Richard, who nowadays is a sort of soppy kind of character. But the intro to his first hit, which is called Move It, everybody wanted to learn that. Because I remember it throbbing out of Radio Luxembourg, they called it, because it was in Luxembourg. And this sound, and to give it its best compliment, it sounded American. It didn't sound like an imitation. It had hard edge to the guitar, and it had that sort of metallic sound. It was great. So even the Beatles, who hated Cliff Richard and the Shadows, wanted to learn that intro. Yeah, it was so cool. So every British rock guitar player of my age group can play that intro. Every one of us. So then the British got more creative, and during that period when Elvis was in the army, the music sort of went down and got soppy, and then the Beatles happened. Because what must have happened is all the people who were listening to this stuff and learning how to do it, it was a whole huge movement going on, and the Beatles were just lucky that someone discovered them, because at the time they thought guitars were going out, but then they heard these guys who were singing with their ethnic accent and all that, so that's what happened, and that led to all the other groups who were still, I don't think they were sort of, the Beatles are there, so we must do it. I think that they were all still doing it, and in each one developed its own style. And then you got the Rolling Stones, who had listened to the blues influence of the music, So their first minor hit was a Chuck Berry song called "Come On," and you could hear this happening, and then they gradually got more fame. One of their big hits, early ones, was a Buddy Holly song. So it shows you even then they
yeah.
were listening to this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a great thing about music. Even like modern music today, you can hear where the influence comes from.
I can hear the magic chord sequence in even modern stuff of today. I can go, that's rock and roll. They're playing still. They just made it more, coloured it differently, etc. But it's still basically the same thing. And you can trace the history back to that mid-50s when it all started to explode. Yeah.
So any music you don't like? Not my cup of tea.
Well, it's particular bands I don't like, even though I think that they're talented bands. They just don't make a noise that I like. For example, I can't stand Queen, who are wonderful musicians, great players, but I don't like the fact that they sort of gay fascist movement. They're serious about it, like we are the champions, I can see a swastika on Freddie's arm, but and I don't like Brian May's guitar sound. It sounds like sort of Walt Disney guitar sound. But except when he plays with Paul Rodgers out of Free, you ever heard of them? Free?
No.
No, you see, Free was huge. In the mid-70s, Free were the band in the UK. Yeah, they crossed all genres. If you could like the Bay City Roads, but hate Led Zeppelin, but you like Free, and they were the band. So when Queen get Paul Rodgers, who's the vocalist, to sing one of Free's songs, then Queen sound like Free, so yes, I'll listen to them then. Yeah. But they are, don't get me wrong, they're a very talented band, and I'm only critical about my personal taste, really.
Yeah, what amazes me about Brian May as a guitar player, like he plays with pennies instead of picks.
Yes, sixpences.
I think that's pretty unique. I think that probably also has to do with the sound.
I think his dad made the guitar as well.
Yeah.
And Brian May is a big fan of one of the UK's premier guitar players, unbelievably good, called Rory Gallagher. You heard of him?
No.
Oh, wow. Well, Rory Gallagher is the UK's Johnny Winter. You heard of Johnny Winter?
I heard of him, yeah.
Because he used to do gigs in Prague, Johnny Winter. I went to see him. Anyway, Rory Gallagher was an Irish guy, phenomenal blues rock guitar player, and Brian May used to go and watch him in some club in London, and he would go and talk to him and everything. And Rory Gallagher was a really nice guy, and Brian May said to him, "How do you get your sound, Rory?" And he'd tell him, "I get a Vox AC30 amp and this treble boost." And so Brian May went and bought loads of Vox AC30s to get his sound, Yeah.
Now that's the thing, like guitar sounds can be so specific.
Oh yeah, I can pick some guys.
Like if I saw like a video about the gig rundown of what's his name? I know his name. Come on, AC/DC, Angus Young.
Angus Young, yeah.
Like the amount of 70s Marshall tops they take on tour is absolutely insane, because they have like 12 of them. Usually 6 of them break in a gig because they run them very, very hot. And there's just one guy, and his permanent job is fixing amp heads. Like he just goes on tour with them, has a little fucking room in the backstage, and he's just changing tunes.
I can picture that. Yeah. Keith
but that sound is so specific.
Oh yeah, it's not a raucous sound, AC/DC. I think they have a very warm, heavy rock sound. It's not sort of like Black Sabbath or somebody. It's a nice warm when they go. It's got that. Oh yeah, I like.
And then they have some kick,
Yeah.
Because I saw them live in 2000. I don't know. 9 or something.
I've never
Basically,
seen
one of my friends called me. He's like, "David, what are you doing tonight?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Yeah, we're going to AC/DC in Amsterdam. Tickets are still on sale. You want to join?" And it's like, "Well, how much is a ticket?" He's like, €60. He's like, "Sure." So I decided on the same day to go to AC/DC, that was one of the most bizarre rock and roll shows ever. You know, like big ass fucking trains on stage and all these weird theatricals.
I see.
But then kick ass rock
Pink
and
Floyd
roll.
like that, aren't they?
It's just one of the old school bands that are still around today.
That's an interesting expression. I pondered on why they call it old school, because school implies a sort of method of something. So I wondered, do they just mean old? That's stupid calling it a school. And I worked out what they mean. Nowadays, I'm sure you can go to school for rock and roll, and you get a probably PhD in death metal or something.
I'm pretty sure you could.
But in our days, we were all sort of self-taught. And so we were making loads of mistakes, etc. And that's probably what they mean. They mean old school means all these oldie guys who taught themselves.
It might actually be a good explanation.
Yeah, and by the 70s, a lot of us had learned how to play, and so it's like the sort of pinnacle of my generation is the 70s style where all these huge bands are. I mean, have you ever seen The Who play?
No.
Oh my, The Who are the most exciting band to watch of all time. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not talking about, they're not maybe the biggest rock and roll band in the world, but they're definitely the most exciting to watch, especially in the 70s. Oh God. It was like everybody's doing things, and there's only three guys making the noise, and they've got this full sound because the bass player was a virtuoso, and he was unbelievable. And The Who are just so exciting. Pete Townsend, crazy guitar style, which he stole of somebody. One day he was watching the Rolling Stones play. And Keith Richards, who's got great guitar moves, right? When he's playing all over the place. And he went bang like that once. And Townsend went, that's a good trick. And so years later he told Keith Richards about this, and Keith said, oh, I don't remember.
I got to see the Rolling Stones myself.
Oh, I've seen them loads of
I was like, well, I'm way younger than you, obviously. But I was at a festival.
Yeah.
Like, the Rolling Stones was gonna close the freaking festival, and I'm like, well, while I'm here, I'm gonna check it out, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was like basically the most rock and roll elderly home performance on the stage.
Yeah.
Like Mick Jagger, pretty sure took some stimulants. I don't think you can dance like that for like 2 hours without taking
that's pretty
stimulants
cool,
at that age. It's like, what? But really, really entertaining.
Yeah.
And just good songs. That's the thing.
Oh yeah. When they play stuff, I like their mid-period the best. Although Brian Jones was extremely talented and nowadays very underrated musician. He could play anything, get a tune out of anything. Cello, piano, sitar, anything he could play. But the period when they had Mick Taylor on guitar, when they did stuff like Brown Sugar and Honky Tonk Women, where Mick Taylor brought the expertise he learnt playing with John Mayall. You heard of him?
No.
John Mayall is the father of British blues. He went to America and tape recorded loads of people and went back and started putting a blues band together. And all the famous guitar players that you've heard of played in his band, like Mick Taylor and Peter Green. Oh, God, Peter Green was wonderful. And Eric Clapton. They all played in John Mayall's Blues Breakers, you see. So that's how he was considered. Yeah, I've seen the Stones since the first time was around about the time the shirt was created in Singapore in 1966. And you like this bit because the local newspaper said, this is probably the last time the fans will get to see the Stones because they're going to break up soon.
That aged well. Yeah.
That was in 66, so that was funny. Yeah, I can't. And so I've seen them in 66 and then 83 and about 2 times after that, and then I saw them in Vienna. A friend and I went to watch them. You know. And each time the sound quality got better.
Yeah.
Which begs the reason why the other people who I never saw on live were the Beatles. I would love to have seen the Beatles, but I never got to see them. And they say that they they broke up because they couldn't hear themselves play, etc. Well,
Yeah, I
don't
heard that
buy
as well.
that one because I think they broke up not because of Yoko Ono and all that. I think they broke up because they stopped doing gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the Beatles never did a gig after 1966?
I didn't know.
No, they don't. They just sat in a recording studio making records all the time. And I'm sure that what's the point of that, you know? A band has to be a living thing and go and do gigs, you know? I mean, even the Stones do. They always do a little gig in some small joint before they go on tour, you know? They always do that. Now, the Beatles should have done that because they already pioneered huge stadium gigs, so the quality would have got better. It's everybody had to make it better, you know?
Yeah.
They would have sounded fantastic, but... I mean, they still sound pretty good on some of the performances where you can hear them play, you know.
Yeah, but it's basically the age right before like proper amplification of live music became a thing, which the Beatles also kind of were part of pioneering with all the studio like techniques. Like they figured out like if we do this, we can combine this and it will sound way better.
But of course, they didn't need
some of the
orchestra.
Beatles songs sound pretty good in modern standards, even like the recording quality and the production and the mixing is like, whew, that's impressive with the limited
the BBC,
technology they had.
The BBC, who used to, the Beatles were so big, you know. Every day, for 10 years, every day they were in the paper doing something, you know. And the BBC used to get them to do a show every week on the BBC radio, and they used to rig the sound so that the Beatles could play and sound good. So there's some great. I think there's recordings of those available now. But those were the days.
And do you listen to any modern bands?
I've heard of Green Day. Played some of their stuff. Can't remember it now, but I definitely played their songs. And I played quite a few Czech songs, and then so they must be sort of modern. One band called Crowsbury. I don't know. You heard of them?
No.
Yeah, and the vocalist, one of the vocalists in the band is a girl, and she does some of their stuff, you know. And another guy does another one. I can't remember the Czech names for the songs. So I always call them, you know, different names. Like there's one about a bird, and I call that Pregnant Woman because it's about a stork. So they'll say to me, I say, which song? And they'll go, Pregnant Woman. Now, okay. Intro.
That's good, as long as it's functional.
So the most modern songs I play are Czech rock songs, you know. There was just learned a blues. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Czech blues, like, you know. But it sounds okay. Reminiscent of the Allman Brothers, Stormy Monday, and what's it called? Blues Starry something, you know. What's that? Blues Young Old, isn't it? Starry. Doesn't it mean starry means old?
Yeah, it does.
So blues old something, and so we learnt that only last week. So I'm playing recent stuff, but it's not necessarily English language stuff. You know?
But music kind of surpasses language barriers.
Oh yes, it did.
Because I go to a Czech festival called Rock for People. My Czech is horrible, and it's mostly me and a bunch of Czechs and Slovaks. And it's really fun, and it's great, and I get to see a lot of local bands from the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and they also have always like a few big international headliners. But it's just good fun, and it's one of the harder rock festivals, like in the style of music they play. So some crazy mosh pits and stuff.
There are some really good players in the Czech Republic, really, really good, and music does cross all boundaries. I mean, there must be fascist rock and roll guitar players, but I've never met one yet, really, you know. They're all the same attitude to everything, you know. Freedom.
Yeah.
upset the nasty grown-ups. I still wonder, still think like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a thing that is the same for every generation, I think. It's like the rock and roll is kind of like the rebel, like
Yeah.
authority is like, no, we want to be free. I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me what to do.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, nobody has the right to tell you what to do. I mean, I know that sort of implies anarchy, but you didn't ask to get born.
That's true.
So who says that anyone can sort of tell you how you should behave, apart from practical economic reasons? Why should anyone? And everyday life is actually, I think this is true, that everyday life is anarchy. We don't, when we're negotiating with each other and interacting, we don't sort of think of rules and regulations. We discuss whatever it is and come to some agreement, and that's it. You know, I mean, no one going around with an axe or a machine gun or whatever. So I think every day, I think Noam Chomsky, great American
I
writer.
know the guy. My girlfriend is a big fan.
Oh, well, I think he believes in sort of naive utopian anarchy, you know, rather than even democracy. You know? Yes, so that's my attitude. Yeah.
So, do you have any ambitions for the next few years?
Oh, staying alive is a pretty good one.
That's a good one.
I can actually play that in the Bee Gees. I can't do the high falsetto anymore.
Oh, wow.
Not quite as high. I can do falsetto, but not that particular one, you know.
That was a brilliant move. I once saw like a documentary about the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
And they were like making music and it wasn't catching on, right? I was like, yeah, but the songs are good, you know. It's like, and then like, I forgot the name of the guy, but the vocalist is like, yeah, what if I put a falsetto in here? It's like, and they just tried it with a high voice, throw out the song, and people were like, yeah. He's like, okay, I guess we freaking.
Yeah, they were good at home. I've heard them on a TV show, and it was live, and they were being interviewed by the craziest DJ of the UK called Kenny Everett, and he was interviewing them, and he said he mentioned some song they could do, and they just did it like a cappella, and it was wow, it was impressive. Not an instrument in sight, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you have bands that are that good in the quality of the songwriting that the song just stands even if you take everything away.
You said earlier about influences and things. I tend to favour composers more than, say, individual instrumentalists. Do you know that one of the most successful, maybe even more than Lennon and McCartney, of the later part of the 20th century is Burt Bacharach?
No.
Burt Bacharach has written songs that everyone's heard since the 50s, right? And he wrote things like, you know, all those Carpenters things, you know. He wrote a lot of that. Also, anyone who had a heart, it just goes on and on, the list of stuff. He's like the Cole Porter of the latter part of the 20th century, whereas Cole Porter's like the great songwriter of the early part, you know. To this day, I rate Cole Porter, and coincidentally, so does Paul McCartney. It's his favourite composer is this guy, Cole Porter. His songs will be played forever. You I mean, you might consider it lift music now, but you can hear, say, you know, something like I Get a Kick Out of You, Frank Sinatra, which is one of the most iconic singles of all time, that particular arrangement with Nelson Riddle. Well, that's a Cole Porter song, you know. Or When They Begin, right? Or the song that was the intro to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Anything Goes, that's Cole Porter. It just goes on and on. There's just stuff he came out with. You know?
But that's the thing that a lot of people that listen to music maybe don't understand, is that most of, and it's even true nowadays, most popular, successful songs are usually written and produced by the same people. It's just the band that goes to them. It's like, do you have something we can use? And it's like, oh, well, I have this. I know in pop music, the name of the guy is a Swedish dude called Max Martin.
Uh-huh.
And basically all the popular pop music from like the mid 90s until now, if you grab a pop record like Spice Girls, Britney Spears,
Uh-huh.
Backstreet Boys, Pink, if you look at the album and the credits, like who wrote it,
Yeah.
his name is there.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic because the guy looks like a straight ass like hard rock metal dude. He's just really good at knowing what makes a good pop song.
Yeah, I
Because a
see.
lot of people hate on pop music. It's like it's cheesy.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it is, but it's really well written songs. Like
Yeah,
the
oh,
way
yes.
it's put together and the
I can
structure and
appreciate
the
some,
melodies.
Yeah,
You know?
something being well crafted, I can
Right.
appreciate. But to touch on your point about one group of people doing the whole thing, you know that you've heard of Tamla Motown, right? Well, every Tamla Motown record was played by one band.
Yeah, I know.
And the same applies to all the California stuff. The Wrecking Crew with Glenn Campbell. Nobody realizes just what a great guitar player Glenn Campbell was, because he was such a hit as a vocalist. But his guitar playing, I'd actually heard of Glenn Campbell to think about what you said about names. Because in the mid-'60s, there was a sort of fashion for making instrumental albums of famous songs. And the arrangement was usually to put a harpsichord with the guitars, and you got this particular sound. And one of these records was doing Bob Dylan stuff, right? And on the guitar playing, it's a 12-string Glenn Campbell. You know? So he was a session guitar player. Oh, and the Wrecking Crew reminds me of the most influential bass player of all time is a little old lady, yeah, called Carol Kay. You heard of her?
No.
Well, she was in the Wrecking Crew, right? And I was watching her getting interviewed once on TV, and she was a typical little old lady with pet birds in a cage, you know, when she's talking to them like little old ladies do, you know, what are you guys doing? And then they would say, well, what about when you recorded for the Beach Boys, right?
Yeah,
And she
yeah.
goes, oh, the Beach Boys. And she picks up a bass guitar and plays the intro to Good Vibrations, and they merge the track into her, and it's definitely her, you know, just
That's
amazing.
cool.
And this
Yeah.
little old lady, this bass player, she's like a god to them, you know? And yeah.
And usually those people are pretty humble. Right? They don't have much ego. Like for pop music, it's usually people from Sweden, and they just don't brag. That's part of their culture. Like and there's a recommendation to watch on Netflix. It's called This Is Pop. I believe it's 5 episodes. One of them is about those Swedish songwriters. And you have like this guy sitting there in a chair, and like he has a Nirvana shirt, long hair, and he's sitting there. It's like, yeah, you know, I don't brag, but I got 10 Billboard #1s under my name.
Yeah.
And like that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and then he apologizes for saying it because it's so un-Swedish to do. For now, I think I'm gonna close it because otherwise it will be a 2.5 hour video. So I'd like to thank you for being here with me, talking to me. Maybe you can play us a song if you want.
Oh,
And,
yeah, I could play a song, yeah.
I
sure.
will record it separately and edit into the video.
Okay.
So, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. If there's any social media page to follow for Jack, I will put it in the description below. If you want to be on an episode or have recommendations for people, also leave it in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and have a nice weekend.
And keep on rocking.
Oh, yes.
Like turn into bananas. I was raised by a railway track on the wrong side of town. Father was a working man, faced a hard-won frown. Freight yards were my playing fields, dodging locos' wheels. Trains passed by, I read the signs, places seemed unreal. At 15 years, I took my chance, hit on a train, going in a place. When it stopped and I got off, no one knew my face. Open skies are in my eyes, I'll never settle down. May arrive, but I'll soon be gone, heading out of town. So don't you try and hold my coat, I won't be slow, I'm on the road. When I die by a dusty track, I'll be on my own. I'm alone inside my head, that's the way it's